as you know, only a few times in human history, God wrote with his own finger. One of the incidents was when the Ten Commandments were written, then during the last night of the existence of the Babylonian Empire, and then here, Jesus bent down and he wrote something with his own finger. Just let me tell you that it seems that 2,000 years of Christian exegesis of the biblical text seem not to be enough to discover what did Jesus write on the dust of Jerusalem temple with his own finger. But this was not the only writing. The text says that, verse 7 says, when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw the stone." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. This is the second bending and the second writing of Jesus on the dust of the Jerusalem temple. Twice Jesus wrote with his own finger. And then the text says, verse 9, that when he wrote, then some people began to go away from Jesus. And then the older ones first. I don't know why the older ones were the first to leave Jesus, but this is what John says here. And then he was alone with the woman there. And then he straightened up again. The text says, and he asked the question, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you. Go now and live your life of sin." So this morning, let me try to go into this text and to try to find out what did Jesus write on the ground of Jerusalem temple. There have been many attempts in human history, as I mentioned earlier, to find out what was there. And in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 22, Jeremiah is talking about one king, Israeli king, who left God. And there are these three elements which are mentioned in Jeremiah: writing, earth, going away, being disowned. So I think that St. Ambrose was somehow impressed by this text. That's why he believed that Jesus wrote, earth, 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 write that these people who are going away from Jesus have been disowned. Meaning, those who are staying with Jesus, they will be forgiven, and the ones who are leaving Jesus, they will be rejected. Then I found that in the 9th century, Anno Domini, there is one codex coming from the Eastern Church, from the Orthodox Church, from Constantinople. It is called Codex Nanianus. In that Codex Nanianus, the author is mentioning what Jesus wrote on the ground. This is an attempt, of course. And the author says in Codex Nanianus that Jesus wrote the sins of the people who brought that woman caught in adultery. It is extremely interesting that from the 9th century to the 19th century, Ellen White is following this position. Ellen White also believed that Jesus wrote the sins of the people who were present there. Then if we go 1 century later, to 10th century, there is another codex coming from the Western Church, from the city of Rome, from the Roman Catholic Church. According to Codex Egberti, here is what Jesus wrote twice with his own finger. The Latin words are used there that Jesus wrote, "Terra terram accusat," meaning earth accuses earth. In other words, there were two groups of earthly people, two groups of people made of earth. And one group is willing to stone another person. Two earthly people are standing in front of God, who came to this planet and took upon himself human nature. He is sitting, and there is these two group of earthly people. One group of earthly people is trying to stone another person made of earth. Terra terram accusat. Saint Augustine, when he discusses this text, he quotes Psalm 90. Earth thou art, and to earth you shall go. Meaning, mortals who judge mortals ought to remember that they are made out of earth, says Saint Augustine. To summarize what I said up to this point, we do not know what Jesus wrote on the ground. But I think you try just to maybe imagine in your thoughts, who is Jesus? That being took upon himself human nature, and he came to this planet. Jesus is constantly saying, I am not from this world. I came from some other planet. If he came from some other planet, and if he, we believe, possesses that love that Luther called amore crucis, the love of the cross, then when he was sitting down on the Jerusalem temple and watching this scene where one earthly human beings are trying to stone another human being, it must have been quite a scene for Jesus. Let me tell you why I decided to speak about this text this morning. As I was watching the news like you have done in the last several weeks, I think the horrible scenes of people killing each other, I have in mind especially ISIS here, this is beyond human comprehension. Let me say something about Dostoevsky now, the great Russian writer. He says that all human beings need to come into relationship with other people. This is true. We cannot live isolated. We need love, and we need acceptance from other people. That's why we live with somebody. But as we are searching for love and acceptance, according to Dostoevsky, the greatest obstacle to achieve that harmony of love and acceptance is cruelty among human beings. Cruelty. And then he gives another example of a little boy who is playing, he's the son of a woman who is serving a famous general. She's working, the mother is working on in his fields. And as the boy is throwing stones, suddenly he accidentally hits one of the favorite dogs of the general, and the dog is limping. And the general comes and he says, who hit the dog? And they said, that little boy. And he says, bring the boy. He strips the boy from his clothes. He brings all his dogs. He brings his mother. His mother has to stand there. He releases all the dogs after that little boy. The boy is running and the dogs are after him. They torn him apart. And the mother is watching. And Ivan says to his brother Alyosha, and Ivan is an agnostic, what should be done to General? And Alyosha says he should be shot, killed. And then Ivan says, look, even you, the pious monk of the Russian Orthodox Church, you would shoot him. You are not able to forgive. And then Alyosha says, oh, maybe, yes, I rashly made that statement. Forgiveness. Because Dostoevsky believed that forgiveness is the solution to human problems. And then there is another example. Should the boy forgive the general? Should the mother of the boy forgive the general? If the forgiveness is the solution to human drama. You who know something about Friedrich Nietzsche, you know that he became insane very early. One of the greatest intellectuals with a sharp intellect in the whole human history. One author that I read the book last summer, Giuseppe Ferrara, he said that Nietzsche was not able to accept forgiveness from God. And that's why he went insane. At one point Nietzsche says to God, "Do you want me to turn in dust like a dog in front of you so that I can please you? Do you want me to wave with my tail so that I can please you?" This is Nietzsche. But then he says, after all this, he says, "Please come back to me with all your torments. Your absence from my life, I cannot live without this anymore." So, forgiveness. The question is, can you accept the forgiveness of God? And if, according to Dostoevsky, if we accept the forgiveness of God and we spread the forgiveness, then it is the cure for human problems. And of course, you remember when Lamech, he was the descendant of Cain. He was dancing around, he was the first polygamist, and he was dancing around his wives. And he was singing that strange song, "If Cain kills 7, Lamech will kill how many? 77. Do you know who changed that 7 to 77? It was Jesus. When Peter asked him, how many times I should forgive? What Jesus said? Not 7 times, but 77. This is a complete reversal of human violence. And when it comes to the cross of Christ, suddenly we have violence on the cross. Cross was not something nice to be on, but the only difference, huge difference, is the one who is suffering on the cross. It is God Himself. And the cross should be the final chapter of human violence. So this morning, as I'm thinking about this incident, when they brought this woman caught in adultery, and when Jesus Himself was watching this scene, one group of earthly people trying to stone another person made of earth. Terra terram accusat. And Jesus is watching that group. And the only response that Jesus had is to go to the cross and to inclinatio capite, to breathe His last breath, to die, to bear all the guilt for the violence of human history on His own body, and to offer forgiveness. If we accept forgiveness from God, it means that we are able to share forgiveness and to act on horizontal level with other human beings. And you know, I humbly believe, as a pastor, I several times visited people dying. When people are dying on the bed, they badly need this message of forgiveness. And I believe that the greatest words which any human being can hear, ever, are the words that Jesus said to this woman. Neither do I condemn you. In other words, I forgive you. Can any human being hear more important words than these ones? I don't think so. Can we this morning hear the words of God? That's why we came to church, to hear the word of God. And God is ready to offer us forgiveness. And I think that forgiveness of God can heal our psyche. It can heal our heart. It can heal our body in many ways. It can be to human existence, which is very often meaningless. Can you hear? I do not condemn you. I forgive you. Are you willing to accept the forgiveness of God and to continue life in harmony with God, with other human beings, and with yourself? May God help us to do this. Amen.